Citizen development does not mean
what you think it means.
What started off as a grassroots movement of employees freeing themselves from the boring parts of their jobs has now mutated into yet another form of
Employee exploitation.
So what the hell happened? And what does it have to do with a
$30 billion consulting empire.
This is what the definition of a citizen developer looks like according to its creator Gartner, the world's leading IT research and advisory company. It's a short one, only 88 words, but they are 88 words chosen very purposefully, practiced until every one counts for something. Today, I want to go through this definition line by line to explore how Gartner constructs meaningful insights for leaders of the world's biggest companies and governments. One of the things I find fascinating about Gartner is the way they weave layers of meaning through language. It's what sets them apart from all the other technology analysts and vendors, especially those that cater to less educated audiences or even YouTubers. So what is citizen development? Put simply, it means that anybody can code, while their lesser competitors insist on simply communicating using layman terms and brevity. Gartner disregards those as their primary strategy, understanding that their audience, corporate executives, possess far greater cognitive ability than ordinary human beings. This 88-word, 42-second definition displays the full range of techniques that Gartner uses all the time in their publications.
A citizen developer is an employee who creates application capabilities for consumption by themselves or others, using tools that are not actively forbidden by IT or business units.
Gartner opens the definition with a premise that to the untrained eye could be interpreted as excessively verbose, as redundancy that should be trimmed down for easier understanding. Some might even scoff at this use of prose and claim a resemblance to the wordiness found in police reports or even protracted legal documents. Gartner has looked to nature and found inspiration in the humble onion, using not one, not two, but three rhetorical constructs in the sentence to reveal intricate layers of meaning. In fact, 46 words, or 52% of the 88-word definition, are examples of these devices, all of which are specifically chosen to evoke negativity and fear.
Creates application capabilities for consumption.
Why not just say creates applications? On the surface, they mean the same thing, right? So why does Gartner use 5 words when 2 would suffice? But if we think about it, these two phrases have very different connotations. When we hear creates applications, what image does it create in our minds? Probably a team of software engineers coding a complex program, right? On the other hand, creates application capabilities evokes an entirely different image, one that implies a much smaller endeavor, that it can't even be described as a complete application. And to really drill the point home, the addition of for consumption reminds us of our consumer society with its extravagant and wasteful use of resources. Here, just 3 extra words transforms our understanding, exposing the reality that citizen developers are not software engineers, that they are unable to build complex, high-quality applications despite consuming valuable corporate resources. Many will argue that it's easy to be negative, but I think where Gartner really shines is how they convey a sense of danger to executives to make them truly care.
By themselves or others.
At first glance, this whole phrase seems redundant. Who else could they be creating applications for? But Gartner emphasizes the word themselves to make us feel something, to arouse suspicion in the citizen developers' true intentions, to cast them in a selfish light. And in doing so, Gartner firmly establishes us as the protagonist of the story, while framing citizen developers as the antagonist. They invite us to reconsider the original statement from this brand new perspective. Is there actually someone else besides the citizen developer and other employees? Well, not really someone, but something. The one thing that executives hold dearest to their hearts, the company itself. Despite inserting words that many consider redundant, Gartner shows us that they are never not in control. They immediately throw the executive into a conflict against citizen developers who may not be acting in the company's best interests. Now's the perfect time to raise the stakes.
Using tools that are not actively forbidden by IT or business units.
Why not say not forbidden or simply permitted? By now, we should know better than to question the choice of words. Through this double negative, Gartner emphasizes that such tools, in reality, are used all over the company without active controls. But why do they want us to think about these sneaky citizen developers and their illegal forbidden tools? And why are they implying that the IT department is incompetent in their duty to actively oversee the use of these tools? Gartner, of course, is highlighting the elephant in the room, the presence of shadow IT in all workplaces. This is the concept that there are all sorts of unauthorized applications operating outside the knowledge and jurisdiction of the IT department, in the shadows, so to speak. In fact, Gartner is so committed to this thesis that they repeat it again in the third sentence.
They report to a business unit or function other than IT.
That's a pretty long-winded way of saying they don't report to IT, but Gartner words it in a way that compels us to ask the inevitable question. What is the point of IT if it can't even do its one job of managing and overseeing the use of IT systems?
A citizen developer is a persona, not a title or targeted role.
In the second sentence, Gartner already foreshadows the payoff in the form of a thrilling 22-word conclusion.
There is no required designation of proficiency or time allocation for citizen developers, but they must be legal employees of an organization.
Much like the hook, the payoff is also not immediately obvious. Gartner wants us to work for it before we can truly understand and derive satisfaction from it. And by the end of this video essay, I can assure you that you will never think of citizen developers in the same way. Great writers often use personification to give human characteristics to objects and concepts, thus bringing them to life. But even greater writers for executives, flip this idea on its head. To help understand the genius behind Gartner's wording, think about how you would rewrite the sentence. It might look something like, anyone can perform citizen development regardless of their title, responsibilities, or technical ability. Notice how this version makes us feel a sense of freedom and even empowerment in being a citizen developer. It would be serviceable as an employee-centric definition, but totally unsuitable for executives who cannot afford to let emotions cloud their business judgment. Instead, Gartner uses objectification, commonly known as dehumanization, to frame this particular class of workers as organizational objects possessing specific attributes for input into profit and loss equations. Gartner masterfully built upon the tension created in the opening hook by resonating with the concerns of today's executives. And their greatest fear of all? It's no other than the rise of employees empowered by technology. But why is this so uncomfortable and so unsettling? Because it makes executives feel like they're gradually losing control, losing their iron grip over their organization. But Gartner does not stop there. They also challenge the reader's logical thinking with a clever twist on a classic deductive argument.
All citizen developers are business technologists. However, all business technologists are not necessarily citizen developers.
The first statement, the major premise, is indeed in the form of all X or Y, but the second statement, the minor premise, doesn't quite fit the rules. One might think that this is simply a mistake, that it should take the form of some business technologists are not citizen developers. But you see, Gartner did not intend to bring clarity to differentiate between these buzzwords. Instead, Gartner subverts the format to further blur the lines between these two types of employees. Gartner has in effect made a deductive structure inductive. It has induced confusion and, more importantly, evoked the fear of missing out. It invites us to find out more about these so-called
business technologists.
So why does Gartner introduce a new and confusing concept in the middle of their definition? Doesn't it go against their objectives of educating executives? Well, the answer is actually kind of obvious. Why do YouTubers ask you to smash the like button and check out their next video? Because it's a call to action. You see, words like citizen developer and business technologist did not even exist 20 years ago. They were invented by companies like Gartner to create a double-sided marketplace. On one side, they charge executives to teach them all about these new terms. And on the other side, they charge service providers to promote their offerings in this space. It's a win-win scenario. In fact, This definition was completely rewritten from scratch in April 2021. Gartner's previous definition reveals a buzzword that was still in its infancy. There is no mention at all of a business technologist. Back then, they appeared to be trying to cross-sell services related to 4GL platforms and cloud computing. Times change, I guess. By creating hype and curiosity around language, Gartner's buzzwords have driven the creation of billion-dollar industries that they're desperately trying to cross-sell to their clients. A reader's subscription to Gartner sets companies back $30,000 a year, but it's common for enterprises to spend over
$10 million a year
on personalized consultations and services. Definitions like these are the fundamental building blocks of Gartner's business, which is now worth $30 billion.
There is no required designation of proficiency or time allocation for citizen developers, but they must be legal employees of an organization.
It's no coincidence that the term employee is repeated as the bookends of this definition, being present in the first and the last sentence. Recall that the opening hook painted the employee as the antagonist, an unqualified and devious individual only looking out for their own interests. The final sentence transforms them into legal employees of an organization. Legal is an odd choice of word, as there's no such thing as an illegal employee, but it is specifically chosen for its connotations to remind the executives of their legitimacy and their contractually binding ownership over their workers. The last three words of the definition of an organization might easily be missed upon casual reading. They may even seem completely redundant. Don't all employees belong to an organization? But I think that these three words may just be the most profound and brilliant of them all, because Gartner has been planning this payoff from the very first sentence when they launched the executive into the nightmarish reality of citizen development as a silent protagonist. Not once in the entire definition does Gartner directly refer to the executive either as an individual or a company. But with these final three words, Gartner grounds them in their identity as the organization. Gartner gives them their voice back, and in doing so, accentuates the profundity of our hero's journey. Like any great M. Night Shyamalan plot twist, the ending really does change everything. Everything we learned about citizen developers is now juxtaposed through the lens of our newfound perspective. They no longer have the freedom to do whatever they want without worrying about standards, expectations, or schedules. On the contrary, they are subject to strict rules and regulations that are imposed by their employers and by law. Gartner has laid bare the paradox of the citizen developer. They are expected to do more with less, to take risks without rewards, to innovate without support, and to comply without recognition.
In short, they're the perfect employees.
This is how Gartner has wielded language to reshape the narrative. They wrestle the power of citizen development back to the organization from the hands of their employees. This is why executives love the idea of citizen developers. More than anything else, I think I'm obsessed with composition, with the magic of putting things just the right way. There are 88 words in this definition, and not a single one is wasted. They're used to tell a story through layers to contribute to the overall effect, an effect that lets us see the world through the eyes of an executive, and more importantly, makes us feel in control, empowers us with strength and clarity in this confusing business landscape. Like great poetry, a great definition is language, distilled to its most potent form. And these days, few people distill it better than Gartner. Now that we know what companies really think about citizen developers, why don't we use this knowledge to our advantage? Check out this video to find out how you can use citizen development to learn coding at work and maybe even land a better job. I'll see you there.